Hi, I'm Cindy Walter.
And I'm Janie Donaldson. Welcome to Quilt Central, where we celebrate quilting and everyday living.
Today we have a lot of inspiring ideas.
We'll show you dazzling looks made easy on today's episode of Quilt Central. See how color can add pizzazz to a rainy day as Cynthia Scott shows Cindy how to create a fast and easy pinwheel umbrella using the serger. Take cover, there will be a block explosion on the set, but don't be alarmed. Cindy Casciato shows Janie her technique for making a quilt using big blocks. In Tool School, Dave Martelli has a cutting-edge solution to one viewer's problem. See how the New Mexico landscape and the spectacular work of Georiaia O Keeffe inspires quilters. And Mary Pearson will share her speedy and fun technique for creating a fan block. This is Quilt Central. Quilt Central is made possible in part by Jacquard Products, committed to meeting the needs of artists. Janome America, Janome, because you simply love to sew. Fairfield Processing Corporation, we care for your quilts. A1 Quilting Machines, A1, precision quilting machines. Olfa, the original rotary cutting system. Sulky of America, makers of decorative threads, stabilizers, books, and iron-on transfer pins. Welcome to Quilt Central, celebrating quilting and everyday living with your hosts Janie Donaldson, Cindy Walter, and David Martelli.
Our sewing educator, Cynthia Scott, is going to show us how to make this pinwheel umbrella. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, Cindy.
This is a fabulous project. I never dreamed I could make an umbrella.
I had fun coming up with this one. Well, I live in the Northwest. It rains a lot, and I figure a black umbrella is pretty boring. So we decided to go for a shot of color and have a lot of fun with an existing umbrella frame.
Wonderful. And I see that you make it on the serger, so it's all going to be sealed and fast and easy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you just start with any old umbrella.
Yes, we have an existing umbrella. And all we need to do, actually an umbrella is very simple. It's nothing more than 8 pie shapes sewn together and attached to the umbrella frame. So what we can do is make a pattern from one of the 8 pie shapes and add some seam allowances.
How much did you add?
I added about 3/8 of an inch, and that's what we're going to want to serge off when we do the actual construction.
Okay.
So after we've created our one pie shape, we can actually split it into 2 parts. Now what I've done is created, the top part is actually going to be cut from a strip set.
Okay, a strata like right here.
A strata of nylon, exactly. We had 4 colors that we chose for this version, and they are sewn with the serger and a 3-thread rolled edge.
Okay.
Now I decided to use some unusual thread for this. We have in the lower looper and the needle position of our 3-thread rolled edge, regular polyester embroidery thread that has some shine to it.
Okay.
Our upper looper, we use this polyester floss. It's a new thread that's out, and it has a nice sheen to it, and it covers the rolled edge beautifully.
Is it strong enough?
It is.
Okay,
it absolutely is. So everything in this is the nylon fabric and polyester thread.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to set our machine up very easily here with a rolled hem edge, and we adjust our stitch length accordingly to the R position for rolled edge. And then we're basically going to serge our edge, our stratas together. And again, we have those 4 strips that we're sewing together.
Beautiful.
The finished rolled edge looks like this.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
And then there's no threads or anything. And speaking of the thread, the fabric was kind of important because you told me that you use all nylon fabric, so it's actually almost waterproof.
It absolutely is waterproof. And And it works very well. I've used these quite a bit, and they stand up. So.
And without rolling the hems or the seams inside, they would fray. So you definitely need to roll the edges or do a French seam or something if you didn't have a serger.
Yes, that's correct. But it does give a nice finished edge with this thread and a simple rolled edge.
Yeah, it's great.
So once we have our strata constructed, we then need to actually cut out 8 pie shapes. Now I have my fabric layered here. I have actually 2 strata sets sewn together. And then we have our pattern laid out in 2 different widths of fabric. We have a 3-inch strip and a 3 3/4-inch strips in the center. So we cut 8 of those out.
And I have to say, really your strata strips can be any width as long as the ending piece is bigger than this template, so you could cut it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be fun. You could even do it kind of a crazy patch or anything you wanted.
And really the strata depends on the size of your finished umbrella and how big that you're going to make those.
Oh, I see, right. Okay.
Okay.
So after we've sewn it to the strata, we have it.
Then and our pieces are cut out. We have a solid on the bottom and the strata on the top, and we'll actually do the same rolled edge to join those two, which creates a piece that looks like this.
One of our 8 pieces of our pinwheel.
That's right.
But we have one here that's almost finished because there's quite a bit more information. This is the part that I just never dreamed that you could actually do this yourself. It never occurred to me, and it's so easy.
Yes. Well, basically an umbrella is only joined in a few places. The center, which we'll show you in a minute.
Okay.
And then there are small holes in most umbrella frames that we actually can hand sew the cover at the seam line to the umbrella frame. And there's usually just a few points, including the outside edge, which for this one that's partially constructed, we have safety pins holding it on.
Just to show us
because we're checking the fit after we've serged
so
our
right
8
now
pieces
you're
together.
checking the fit. Then you would take it back off and roll under this edge and do a rolled edge.
We do this exact same rolled edge along the outside once we've tested our fit.
Yeah, and back up, I want to ask you one thing. The little holes in here, actually I have some broken umbrellas. I could probably fix them. But this little hole in here, do I just use a regular thread or a jeans thread? Is something thicker, heavier?
Probably a slightly thicker thread, a strong one. A jeans thread to coordinate with the fabrics you're using would be super.
Something that matches. And this one has a stabilizer right here, but did you add it in there?
That came with the existing umbrella cover, so I just put it back on.
Okay.
And when I attached it, we can flip the umbrella over.
It might not be a bad idea though if you didn't have that, because that would prevent this hole from ever ripping out.
Correct. Now this particular umbrella has a screw post for the center. This actually unscrews, and that's how you get the umbrella cover on and off. Now some umbrellas have actually a pointy post, most umbrellas do. And there's a flange that usually fits down over that post that can be easily pried off. Okay. You take the existing cover off and put your new one on, put the flange back on, you're all set.
Wow, thanks for bringing us a project that everyone can enjoy.
I had so much fun here.
I
Thanks,
have
Cindy.
too. Now, let's join Janie.
Today we have with us Cindy Casciato, author. Hi Cindy, how are you?
Hi Janie, I'm fine. It's so good to be here again.
This is a project that is exploding, isn't it?
Thanks. Yes, it is. It's going to take a little block and make a big block out of it, and we're going to get a lot of quilts done so much faster and quicker.
The centerfold, my colors.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like
Wonderful.
those.
So, but this is the project.
This is the project we're going to work on today. And you can
Okay.
see it only took 4 blocks to make this wall hanging.
Yes.
And that's
See how
because
that goes together.
instead of making a traditional block of only 12 inches, let me scoot that back over here, only 12 inches, we've made the block 15 inches.
Wow.
So when we explode the block and make it bigger, we get to show off our fabrics, and we have larger pieces to work with, and the good news is we make less blocks.
I'm a long arm quilter, and the bigger the block, the more I can get in there for a
Yeah.
medallion, so I really like that.
Well, great.
I
Awesome.
have a bigger family too, so I don't have to sew so much.
You're right, and everybody expects you to make them a quilt.
I know,
You're
yes,
right. And you can get it done with these large blocks.
Okay, let's see how that goes together.
I'm going to show you this, and we're actually going to break down the block into units, And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to sew these half square units. And there are 3 of them in the block.
Those are easy to do.
Yes, those are pretty easy to do. And then we're going to add the triangles. Exactly. And that's one piece. Then we need another triangle at the top of this one.
I leave a little space in there so they can
so you
see.
can see where it's going to join. Exactly. And then we need this piece here.
Okay.
Okay.
And then how do you sew those units together?
So first you're going to combine where your triangles
two?
and half squares.
This strip.
and this strip.
Good
And
idea.
then if you take that away, I'll show you what they look like when they're completed.
Okay.
Okay, so here was your first strip, and it's joined now.
Okay.
And here's your next one.
All right.
And
Going
here's
right
your
together
third
there.
one. See how that's going to join now?
Easy.
You've got 2 seams left, and then you're going to have your completed block by adding 2 triangles.
the
Put that one on the
corners.
top, this one on the
That
bottom,
is quick and easy.
and there's your block.
Wow, that looks like
Isn't
so
that
much
easy?
fun. Yeah.
And
I
with
bet
4 of those, you've got a completed project. Add borders and you're done.
that is wonderful. I think we could get that together pretty quickly.
I think you can. And for a
Okay.
big quilt, you only need 12. So it's really amazing. It really takes a lot of the time away in making blocks.
We have some other projects and that we can take a look at in the background also. Those are also
Yes.
included in this book, and they are quick and easy
Right.
projects too.
Exactly. I've gone as far as 18-inch on the scale, so it's really fun when you get into the bigger blocks.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to try one of these, and I just love the colors that you've picked. Well, thank you so much for bringing us this project.
Thank you, Janie.
And now we'll go to Tool School.
Email question of the day comes from Nancy Giles in Holden, Massachusetts. Every time I put a new blade in my rotary cutter, it seems to skip for absolutely no reason. What's the deal? Nancy, 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 it's not just you, it's everybody. Now check it out, Bulletin just in, a new tool on the cutting edge of technology made just for you. And remember, Nancy, it's all about the tools. And here's how we prevent our blades from skipping. If you notice the design of the rotary cutter, it's all about the pressure. What's happening here is we're using even pressure on top of the blade instead of uneven pressure behind the blade. And let me give you a quick analogy, and this may seem a little silly to you at home, but this is the principle that it works on. If you've ever taken an egg out of your refrigerator and you try to squeeze an egg from top to bottom and break that egg, it's going to be humanly impossible. But if you take that same egg and you turn it sideways, just a little bit of pressure will break that egg. But if you notice, let's call this a rotary egg. Again, kind of silly, but if you notice, I'm using even pressure on top of the rotary egg. So if I'm using even pressure from top to bottom, the blade will never bend. So if the blade never bends, it keeps the blade from distorting. And if the blade doesn't distort, we can take this at home, take cardboard, plastic, doesn't matter, be able to cut through that cardboard like it's no big deal, take a big, thick piece of plastic, run through that like it's not even there. And if we use even pressure on top of that blade, we should be able to take a piece of fabric, lay it down, not even hold the rotary cutter in the right position. Of course, holding this wrong, but use this much pressure to cut with. And that's how your rotary cutter should work at home. And remember, it's all about the tools.
If you'd like your quilting tool problem solved, send an email to Dave Martelli at toolschool@quiltcentraltv.com.
The American Southwest has a mysterious allure, with its astonishing scenery capturing the imagination of artists of almost every discipline. The palette of the landscape can range from the muted tones of the earth to the fiery and flamboyant hues of western skies and desert flowers. Painter Georiaia O Keeffe created images that spoke of a power of place from the unique nature of this enchanting land.
O'Keeffe first came to New Mexico in 1917 when she was traveling from Colorado back to Texas where she was teaching. And she spent a few days here and was absolutely intrigued by the landscape and by the area. And she finally returned in 1929, and she said at that time that she had spent all that time trying to get back to New Mexico. So she really felt an immediacy with this landscape and that it was really quite her own. And we know now that this area is called O'Keeffe Country. So she was able to identify herself in terms of this landscape, which is quite unusual. One of the things that has fascinated me about her work is how you can be in the landscape, and if you know her work, you can start picking out the landscape paintings that she did by looking at the landscape itself.
Quilt artist and historian Dorothy Zopf was also surprised by the effect of New Mexico on her artistry.
For me, having been born and brought up in New Jersey and then living my married life in Ohio, it was totally different. I learned to see colors in rocks instead of expecting everything to be full of green foliage and lovely flowers. The shapes are bigger, the gorges are deeper. Water is scarce, is precious, and the clouds are absolutely magnificent anytime you look out the window. There's a grandeur here, I think, really. The landscape probably has its most profound effect in terms of color. I always say, glibly, that the colors of the Southwest are the three secondaries, orange, green, and purple. It has a different feeling about it, and also in such bright sunlight, you tend to use brighter colors to argue back, a little bit with the sun. That's important. So I think that my quilts are probably much brighter, deeper toned than they might have been otherwise.
The culture of New Mexico affects my work in many ways. My earliest quilts were Southwestern applique quilts, and they actually focused on the things that I saw around me. There's so much about the state that's unique. We have a unique food, a very spicy food, and we're known for our chili. And the Native Americans bring a very rich culture to New Mexico. And we have a balloon fiesta, which is a new culture, not an old culture. And so balloons are part of our heritage now. And we have unique wildlife. We have incredible birds. Back in the 1980s, my friends and I decided to make a fundraising raffle quilt for an organization that reflected our interest in the outdoors. And now that's an important component of what I do. We started an organization in 1994 called Hawks Aloft, and we do research on wild birds to see how their populations are doing in the wild. And we also do conservation education using non-releasable birds of prey. There's just this incredible freedom of watching a bird take flight. Yesterday, as I was driving up, I was watching the early migrants arriving, the first birds that are coming back from Mexico. And it's really very inspiring. In this state, there's a lot of freedom to do work that is unique, that is not the norm. People are very accepting of things that are not mainstream. And whatever you want to do is accepted here. We don't have to fit a pattern.
Our guest has a unique business, a traveling quilt shop, but she also has a unique way to show us a speedy and fun way to make a fan. Welcome, Mary Pearson. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Well, this was a very fast way, one of the fastest I've seen. Show us your system for making a fan.
Okay, well, I'm going to take five repeats of my fabric, and I'm going to lay them on top of each other. I'm going to take basting thread and a needle, and I'm going to line them up so that they're exactly on top of each other.
Great, and you baste them together instead of pinning them.
Right, that way when you go back to cut things, you don't have to worry about rolling over pins and destroying your rotary cutter blades or having to pull them out. So the first thing I'm going to do after I've squared up my end, I'm going to take the ruler, and since these are going to be 8-inch blades, I'm going to use the 8-inch section of the ruler.
8-inch blocks.
Yeah, 8-inch blocks. And I'm going to use the 8-inch section of the ruler. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to cut that. And you just turn this around back and forth, and you cut it all the way across into sets of, and each one of these is a block, okay?
Oh, it
and
takes one set for a block.
This is a block, this is a block, this one that I just cut is a block.
So after that fabric, you had about a third of a yard, and you had 5 of them.
Well, I have a total of 1 2/3 yards of fabric here. I'm going to get 5 of these across on this, and I'm going to get 7 of these cuts from selvage to selvage. So I'm going to end up with 35 8-inch blocks when they're finished.
That's
and
a
at
lot.
the end of each of my strips, this is what I'm going to have left over.
That's
so I'll
the only
get that
wastage.
7
I love it.
times.
Here, I'll keep that for snippets. Go ahead.
Okay, there you can do that. All right, now after you have these cut, you have to get them sewn into a fan. So what I'm going to do, since quilting is all about recycling, you're going to use all your junk mail and junk paper.
Great.
You're going to photocopy my masters onto it. You're going to sew your wedges down onto it.
Wait, let's take a look then. So it's basically a foundation piecing, and you photocopy just on
Flip and sew.
on
Get rid
scratch
of all your
paper.
junk mail.
That's great.
Rip open the envelopes. Pull all your 8.5 by 11s out.
That's great. Okay, good way to use
Recycle
all
it.
that up.
Absolutely. So you end up with all of those after you get those all pieced. Now you got to get your top and bottom arcs. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to cut a rectangle here. And I'm going to use the no melt mylar that comes with the ruler. I'm going to cut out the piece that I need, and it's going to be used for 2 things. The one thing it's going to be used for is this one. The first time I'm going to do this is that I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm just going to freehand trim this around here so I have the basic shape. I do one out of here, I do the other side out of here, and out of the center is where I get the arcs for these.
Okay.
So for each rectangle, you end up getting enough for 2 fan blades.
Okay, did you just freely cut that in half then?
Yeah,
in the
I
center?
just
okay.
womped it in half.
Okay.
Not a problem.
That's a technical term, womp.
Yeah, womping is very, very good for me.
Okay.
I like womping.
I like the speediness. Now what do you
Okay.
do next?
The next-
Because I was noticing that you didn't follow the seam line even. You have just a loose, you eyeballed the seam allowance, which was
Yeah.
great because
What you're going to do next, you're going to go to the ironing board, you're going to hit this with your spray starch, and then you're going to lay your piece of no melt mylar down. This is when it really gets fun.
Oh,
and you're just
wow.
going to push this over the edge. And now you have a finished edge on there. It's all turned under. You're going to do the same thing here with this piece. And you're going to have enough of these and enough of these for all of the blocks that you put together. The next thing that you're going to do.
I just want to say too that this is a brilliant idea because our old template material would melt instantly. So to
Yes.
use this no melt mylar, you can use it as this basting ironing tool, and you can't use the regular old-fashioned type. So that makes it so speedy. That's great.
It's very, very simple. The next thing you're going to do is that you're going to take and glue them, since I don't like the A word, which is spelled A-P-L-K, applique. So I'm going to cut and baste because I'm cut and paste. I'm an old secretary. So now I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to go dot, 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 and I'm going to take my top one and I'm going to glue it on there. And I'm going to go dot, 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 and glue my bottom one on there. Okay? When I get the whole stack of these done, the first ones are already dry. Now the next thing I want to do is that I want to rip this paper off the back and get rid of it while I've still got straight up and down seams, because if I take and put another seam across there, then I have to get the tweezers out of the bathroom and turn them into quilting tools.
Right.
And I don't use tweezers for quilting tools. So after I do that, then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my sewing machine, and with thread in the top that matches my arc fabric, I'm going to simply top stitch these down. I'm going to run them all through, turn them around, run the other side through. When I get all that done.
You could also even do your decorative stitches on here after you top stitch it.
Exactly. And for those hand people that like to do that, you can't see this, and they could do their hand stitching on here, and no one would ever know that they'd done these on the machine.
Right.
Okay.
But on the machine, we have so many beautiful decorative threads. We could do this with gold, a contrasting thread.
Exactly.
Into a decorative stitch right there. That'd be beautiful.
Right. You could do anything you wanted to with these. Now, the last thing you're going to do, you're going to go back to your ruler, and you're going to take the ruler. Since this is going to be an 8.5-inch block and 8-inch finished, I'm simply going to take and put the arc line on there, line this up, and I'm going to take and trim this off.
Where did you put the arc line? Oh, do you use the inside one or the outside?
I use this one right here. And then I'm going to trim this off here. Now I have a nice square tip over here to work off of. I go back to the hard ruled 8.5-inch line, put it along here and here.
What a perfect way to split
I
up the block, because
trim
there's
this
nothing
off.
to match out there.
Exactly.
Wow,
and I trim
smart.
this off, and now I have a perfect
That is
finished
excellent.
block.
Thank you for that speedy tip. I'm gonna make a few different types of blocks like this, not just a fan. So that was a great tip. Thanks for that. And I hope you enjoyed our show today. Join us next time.
Quilt around the clock. Visit the Quilt Central website at www.quiltcentraltv.com for more information on this program.
Our sewing educator, Cynthia. What is going on?
I feel so bad now.
Okay.
Quilt Central is made possible in part by Jacquard Products, committed to meeting the needs of artists. Janome America. Janome, because you simply love to sew. Fairfield Processing Corporation. We care for your quilts. A1 Quilting Machines. A1. Precision Quilting Machines. Ulfa, the original rotary cutting system. Sulky of America, makers of decorative threads, stabilizers, books, and iron-on transfer pins. We are celebrating quilting in everyday living by offering you the new educational beginner kits. You may call toll-free 1-866-PADUCA or visit www.quiltcentraltv.com.